Hello, everyone. This is the Inner Voice Show, part of the Evolving Mind series in the Togetherness media. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist and author of 6 books and the founder of the Awareness Integration Therapy and Theory. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our mind, thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. In this show, I will share the tip of the week about how to stop wasting your good time and energy on pointless thoughts and emotions, and how to become efficient in spending your mental and emotional energy. Then I will share with you why do we use sarcasm and the effects of it on the listener, actually. And then I'll bring you Marianne O'Hara. She's the author of the novel Cascade, the Boston Globe Book Club's inaugural pick, and finalist of the Massachusetts Book Award and the People Book of the Week. And today we will be talking about her latest book, Little Matches. It's based on the 9 Lives Notes block she kept while her daughter Caitlin waited for a lung transplant. We have an amazing conversation about life, death, facing beyond. And it's a sweet, sweet conversation. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. But first, this is the tip of the week. Have you ever noticed when your internal opinions and dialogues are pretty much irrelevant, pointless, and are just wasting your valuable time and energy? Imagine sitting in your home or apartment, hearing a noise from other apartments or homes. Your mind starts wandering, checking out the noise. First, you may check to see if all is safe. Then you may assess to see if you could do anything about the matter. So far, so good. Definitely relevant and necessary. Then you may begin assuming and fabricating all the what-if scenarios about the neighbor and what might be happening, and then a certain opinion of what you like or dislike, or that they should or should not be going or be doing such and such. This is when thoughts and opinions become irrelevant and unnecessary. Although as human beings, you're wired to constantly evaluate and have thoughts and opinions about all stimulus that enters your world, it is important to be efficient about the time and energy you spend on thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Someone who's upset about their coworker's way of relating to her children, although the coworker's life has no bearing on this person's life, someone who spends most hours of the day angry at their siblings for acting a particular way, while they have no authority to make decisions for them anyway. And someone who every day punishes her parents in her own mind about who they were and how they treated her when she was a child, while knowing that she has no way of changing the events in the past, are all the ways that one might spend a better stated, kind of like waste good energy and time over irrelevant matter, which would make it pretty much pointless. Unless someone enjoys this way of thinking as a dramatic internal entertainment, it may have no other useful application. So observe. In what ways do you waste your time and energy on irrelevant matters? What do you consider irrelevant? In what areas do you insist you have to have an opinion while no one is really listening or applying your opinion? How much time do you spend on matters that uproar you emotionally? How many of these matters you actually do something that makes a difference for you or others? What would you pay attention to instead if you choose to let go of the irrelevant thoughts? So I have some suggestions. Observe your thoughts. Assess if this matter is impacting you directly or indirectly. Assess if you have the ability to do something about it. Assess if you have the jurisdiction or the authority, the control, or the ability to influence the matter. Assess if your opinion and actions would benefit you or others. Assess if there are other people who are inviting your opinion or just telling you with their behavior that your opinion is irrelevant to them. Act if you choose to. If the answer to all of what I said was no, then drop it and move on to a thought and action that is useful, relevant, and beneficial for you and others around you. That is what I call efficiency in thought, emotion, and action. So for more observational tools in every area of your life, go to my book, Life Reset, The Awareness Integration Path to Create the Life You Want. Thank you for listening. Here's Dr. Foojan Zeine again. In the Ask Me segment, I have been asked to talk about why people use sarcasm when they can actually talk straight. So I guess I'm going to combine it with some research that I found as I was looking at why do people use sarcasm. And I'll share with you at the end of the research what I would also add. So I found this research done by Pickering, Thompson, and Phillick, published in the Metaphor and Symbol, examining the emotional impact of sarcasm using a virtual environment. Irony is used around 8% of conversational turn between friends, making it a common form of non-literal language. Verbal irony describes a situation in which an individual makes a statement that means the opposite of what they say. Sarcastic irony, it is commonly believed to differ from general irony in that the statement or attitude conveyed tends to be one of ridicule, directed toward a specific individual. This can either be through uttering a positive statement to imply something negative, like a sarcastic criticism, or uttering a negative statement to imply something positive, sarcastic compliment. For example, if someone performed poorly in a test, a sarcastic response may be, "Wow, you're so smart," a sarcastic criticism. Or alternatively, if they perform exceptionally well, a sarcastic individual might say, "Wow, you did terribly." It's like a sarcastic compliment. Although ironic criticism is more common than ironic praise, ironic compliments do nonetheless still occur. It is interesting to note that some researchers may argue that sarcastic compliments do not exist as they do easily fit with the definition of sarcasm. However, even though a sarcastic compliment would intend to praise, there may still be an additional element of implied criticism that is not present in a literal compliment, as sarcasm tends to be delivered in a more mocking manner. Since verbal irony and therefore sarcasm often involve stating the opposite of what is meant, the words used are unlikely to resemble the speaker's intended meaning. Consequently, irony and sarcasm can be fairly ambiguous and may result in processing difficulty. For example, resulting in disruption to eye movements during reading of an ironic comment. In addition to potentially resulting in processing difficulty, misinterpretation of a sarcastic comment can result in failed communication. Why then is sarcasm commonly used as opposed to generally more straightforward and comprehensible literal alternative? It seems likely that non-literal comments entails different discourse goals that would not be achieved through the use of literal statements. In order to justify the decision to use non-literal language, such as sarcasm, the additional information gained from the chosen expression of speech must overshadow the possibility for interpretation of the intended meaning. Experimental research into the additional goals achieved through the use of sarcasm have suggested a range of social and emotional functions. For example, to be polite, to save face, to identify with the in-group, to mock, and to harshly criticize. One particular goal that has often been associated with the use of sarcasm is also to be humorous. Ironic comments were perceived as more humorous than their literal alternatives. Although sarcasm was perceived to be negative, it was also rated as more humorous. In an attempt to explain the effect of humor, the disparity between what the speaker intends and what the speaker actually says inevitably creates tension. And this tension, together with the surprise of hearing a comment that is the opposite of what is expected, results in the comment being perceived as humorous. Thus, sarcasm may be used to influence the emotional impact a comment has on the recipient compared to the literal alternative. However, there's a disagreement regarding whether this effect is to mute or instead enhance the positive or negative nature of the statement. Sarcasm is used to accentuate the condemnation or praise in a message relative to the literal direct alternative. This is based on the idea that when a person first hears a sarcasm statement, they must initially process the literal meaning to some degree, which then taints the intended meaning. For example, using the negative term awful to sarcastically compliment an individual would taint the comment with a negative literal meaning of awful, thus making it appear less positive than the positive literal alternative to say great. Likewise, using the positive term great to sarcastically criticize someone would taint the comment with the positive literal meaning of great to appear less negative than the negative literal alternative awful. And the result of this research actually showed that ratings of the perceived emotional impact of feedback were influenced by specifically literal compliments were rated as more positive than sarcastic compliments, and literal criticisms as more negative than sarcastic criticism. The same pattern of effect was observed when participants considered the perceived intent of the speaker. The part that I also like to add to the research is actually that a lot of times when people are angry or they're not in a good mood or their way of thinking and being is kind of non-loving, sarcasm shows up, which they will put something that they're edgy about or agitated about or they're criticizing. They put it into a humorous level where it's funny, so it kind of calms it down and it doesn't become a confrontive aspect, so that the confrontation softens up and it becomes more like a carefrontive versus confrontive. But the other side of it is also that people, when they're confronted with saying a sarcasm, they can easily not take responsibility for that microaggression that comes and say, I was just joking. And it's true, they were being humorous. But the point of how you put that criticism within the humor, it still many times stings. So the effect of the sarcasm, especially when it's having a criticism concept into it, it actually leaves a nasty feeling with us, because it's almost like you just got stabbed, but you can't even, the person won't even take responsibility for just stabbing you, but you kind of like felt stabbed. But you're supposed to laugh at it or let it go. And if you actually got upset with the stabbing, then it would feel like there's something wrong with you, not the stabber. So that is also the negative part of the sarcasm. We talked about how it's useful in many, many aspects, but there's also the negative aspect of the sarcasm. Most people, if you look at, if they're, most of their conversation is on a sarcastic level, they might have some issue with direct conversation. They might feel shy, they might feel vulnerable, they might feel like it's too bold or it's too powerful and they can't have it to be that. And they kind of like soften it up consistently with the sarcasm. So those are the ways that sarcasm kind of work and doesn't work. So since you asked about sarcasm, the point is, if you're using it, see how much you're using it. Is it helpful in your communication? Is it bringing two people closer together? How else could you say things without the kind of like the twinge of anger or microaggression being in it? Can you be humorous and have some positive sarcasm in there? Or if you really have something that you're upset about, would it be effective if you actually kind of put it in sarcasm? Sometimes we look at sarcasm as kind of like a passive aggressive way of sharing things, so that if you don't like something and you don't want to put it out there straight, you kind of like soften it up with that. Again, it's going to hurt anyway. The positive sarcasm, like, you're actually giving a compliment to someone, but you bring it into like a negative thing. Try sometimes to also just say the positive without having to bring any negativity in it, because sometimes even that shows you're angry and your anger is showing up. Your anger is leaking everywhere. So use it appropriately. Use it in a way that is intended, and use it in a way that'll bring people together versus take them apart. Thank you for listening.
Togetherness Media. Togethernessmedia.com